My name's Bryce, and for as long as I can remember, I believe that the foundation of any real relationship was loyalty, that unspoken promise that no matter what life throws at you, your partner will stand by your side. But the day my wife chose to stand up for her colleague instead of me, that was a moment everything shifted. It was a moment I understood I didn't mean nearly as much to her as I had always believed. But before we get to that turning point, I need to take you back to the very beginning, to the moment I first met the woman who would eventually become my wife. It happened at a corporate function hosted by the company I worked for. The place was buzzing with professionals from across the industry, all mingling and exchanging business cards. It was the kind of event meant more for networking than anything personal. And yet, there she was, Valeria. She represented a rival firm, but none of that mattered when our eyes met. I can't recall every single detail from that evening, but I remember seeing her clear as day. We had a short conversation, nothing too deep, but just enough to spark something. Before we both disappeared into the night, I made sure to get her number. I didn't know where it would lead, but I knew I wanted to talk to her again. At first, our conversations were casual, just the occasional check-in, a light-hearted meme, or a "how's your day" text. But before long, those small exchanges became a part of my daily routine. Our chats turned into full-on conversations, and it wasn't long before we made it official. What drew me to Valeria wasn't just attraction. There was something deeper. We clicked on an intellectual level, too. We could talk endlessly about work, the drive to succeed, the pressure that came with chasing excellence in a cutthroat industry. We saw things similarly. That common ground made it feel like we weren't just dating, we were teammates. Before we decided to get married, we had countless late-night talks about the future. We made a conscious decision to hold off on starting a family. Both of us wanted to focus on building our careers without the added pressure. We talked timelines, personal milestones, how we'd uplift and support each other in our individual journeys. We even outlined how we'd handle life at home, who would take on what responsibilities, how we'd ensure neither of us felt like we were bearing the brunt of the workload. We were intentional about creating balance. We were both ambitious, and it felt good to be aligned, honest, and realistic about what our lifestyle would demand. When I said "I do," I genuinely believed I had made the wisest choice of my life. I wasn't just marrying a stunning woman. I was committing to someone who truly understood me, someone with her own dreams, who honored mine just as much. I genuinely believed I was walking into a future where two driven individuals could grow side by side, both personally and professionally. Back then, everything felt aligned. We had mapped out our path so carefully that I didn't see how anything could possibly fall apart. The first few years of marriage actually went just how we'd envisioned. We handled our home like a well-oiled machine, splitting tasks based on whoever had a lighter workload at the time. We had a rhythm, a sense of teamwork that just worked. We respected one another's time and boundaries, and even with our packed schedules, we carved out time to reconnect. That kind of harmony made me think we'd laid down a strong enough base to support everything else that might come later. But when the moment arrived to shift from career first to starting a family, just like we'd planned, Valeria began to hesitate. The first time, she said, "Let's just get through this fiscal year. I want to hit the goals I've set at work." And I got that. I supported her without hesitation. But when the next year rolled around, it became, "There's a regional role opening up. I need to go for it." Again, I stood by her. I've always admired her drive, and I've never wanted to stand in the way of that. But I'm not oblivious to time either. When it comes to having kids, biology matters. This wasn't about pressuring her. It was about reality. By the third year of delays, it started to feel less like a temporary shift and more like a permanent avoidance. That's when I couldn't keep burying how I felt. One night, after we'd finished dinner, I asked her to sit down and talk. I opened up. I reminded her of the conversations we'd had, our shared dreams, the patience I'd offered, and how I'd been trusting that when the right time came, we'd take that next step together. But instead of hearing me out, she got defensive. She stood up, folded her arms across her chest, and hit me with a line I'll never forget. "So I'm supposed to just throw my career on pause because you're desperate to play dad?" I didn't even know how to respond to that. She kept going, telling me she was on the brink of a huge promotion she'd been chasing for years, and that instead of supporting her, I was trying to derail her progress. I sat there in silence, stunned. That same promotion had been the reason behind every delay for the last 3 years. It wasn't just a passing detour anymore. This was our new reality, and I realized I couldn't keep pretending to be okay with it. I told her honestly that I was unhappy, that I felt like I was slowly being sidelined in my own marriage. But we never really resolved anything. The conversation just fizzled out, left hanging in the air like a heavy fog. And what happened in the days after that was somehow worse. She didn't argue. She didn't even try to explain. She just emotionally shut down. There was no shouting, no dramatic fight, just silence. She stopped sharing her day with me, stopped asking about mine. The warmth that had once filled our home evaporated. Whenever I tried to talk, she claimed she was too tired or too busy. If I suggested a weekend getaway or even a quiet dinner, she'd brush it off like it was a burden. Slowly, she began pulling away, not physically, because we still shared the same space, the same bed, but emotionally, she was gone. I didn't want to make any impulsive choices. I didn't want to walk away from something we'd both worked so hard to build. So I waited. I hoped. At first, it was small things. She'd start coming home a little later than usual. A quick text would come in, out with clients, or working late on a project. I tried to be understanding. We were both deep in demanding careers, and late nights were part of the deal we'd signed up for. So when Valeria said she had meetings or client dinners that ran late, I didn't question it. At first, the text still came, quick updates, letting me know where she was or when she'd be home. But over time, even those messages stopped. I'd find myself sitting on the couch, glancing at the clock every few minutes, convincing myself she'd walk in any second. And when she finally did, she barely said a word. No apology. No, hey, sorry I'm late. No sharing how her day went. Just silence. She'd head straight to the bathroom, change into loungewear, and crawl into bed without so much as a glance in my direction. If I tried to ask about her night, she'd wave me off. "I'm tired" became her go-to reply. Then came the night everything shifted. She came in late, just like always, but as she passed by me, I caught the scent, strong, unmistakable. Alcohol. I stood and asked calmly, "Valeria, were you drinking?" Her reaction was instant, defensive, almost hostile. "So what if I had a few drinks with friends?" she snapped. "I'm not allowed to have a life." All I wanted was the truth, but she acted like I was grilling her. I asked why she hadn't let me know where she was or who she was with, and she fired back with venom. "What are you, my babysitter now?" She tried to move past me, and without force, I gently touched her arm, just enough to stop her from walking away again without answering me. That's when she toned, stared me dead in the eyes, and said something I'll never forget. "If you don't let go of me right now, I'm calling the cops for harassment." I went cold. My hand dropped before my brain could even catch up. She disappeared into the bedroom like it was any other night, as if she hadn't just torn the floor out from under me. I stood there, frozen, in a home that no longer felt like mine. And in that moment, it hit me. This wasn't just a rough patch. I wasn't emotionally safe in my own marriage anymore. After that, she barely acknowledged my existence. No greetings. No small talk. No asking about my day. It wasn't just a silence. It was a deliberate distance. She stayed out even later, sometimes didn't come home at all. It was like she was testing me, daring me to react, seeing how much I could take before I cracked. But I held on. I still hoped, foolishly maybe, that she'd come around, that something inside her would snap back to the person I married. Then came a strange twist. My company had been collaborating with her firm on a few projects, and I was asked to deliver some documents personally to one of their department heads. It felt like fate offering me a chance to say a quick hello, assuming she wasn't swamped. I walked into her building, checked in at reception, and after a quick confirmation call, they directed me upstairs. As I walked toward the office I was sent to, I passed someone in the hallway, a guy who looked vaguely familiar. I remembered Valeria mentioning him once or twice back when things between us were still okay. And then it happened. As I walked by, I heard him mutter something under his breath, something crude. I stopped mid-step, turned around slowly. "What did you just say?" I asked him directly. He stared at me, all calm, pretending he hadn't said a word. That smug little smirk on his face made my blood boil. He played the innocent routine, acting like I was imagining things. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I just locked eyes with him and repeated the question. You sure you didn't say anything? He gave a lazy shrug and kept up the act. That's when Valeria showed up out of nowhere. Maybe someone had called her. She walked into the hallway and asked, "What's going on?" I turned to her, expecting, hoping that she'd have my back, or at least ask what happened before jumping to conclusions. I explained everything, told her what I'd heard, how I confronted him, and how he denied it. But instead of standing with me, she turned to the guy and asked, "Did you say that?" He shook his head. "No, I didn't." And just like that, she turned to me and said, "He wouldn't lie about something like that." I couldn't even speak. I was stunned. My own wife had taken a co-worker's word over mine, without question, without hesitation. That was the moment I knew something was broken beyond repair. I didn't argue. There was no point. I handed the documents to the department head, wished him a good day, and walked out of that building with a knot in my chest that refused to loosen. I didn't go back to my office. I went straight home and sat on the edge of the bed for nearly an hour, trying to process it all. This was the same woman who once promised to build a life with me, who swore we were in this together. Now she was treating me like a burden, like a stranger. She'd shut me out for months, came home smelling like bars, skipped nights entirely without explanation, and now this, choosing someone else, in public, without hesitation. That night, I made a quiet decision. I went online and scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney for the next morning. When she came home that evening, I thought maybe there'd be a hint of remorse. Maybe she'd realize what she'd done. But instead, she stormed in and launched straight into a rant. "You embarrassed me at work," she shouted. "You made me look bad in front of everyone." I just sat there, not because I didn't have words, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, she was making me the villain. She ranted for a while, throwing blame like confetti, and then slammed the bedroom door without another glance. As I sat alone in the living room, I saw it clearly how much I'd tolerated, how many red flags I'd ignored. And after everything, I started looking into the truth. It didn't take much digging before I discovered the truth. My wife's connection with that co-worker wasn't just professional. Her loyalty to him, her need to defend him so fiercely, it all made sense. It wasn't just about taking his side. She was involved, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. I made a quiet promise to myself. I'd handle him, but not yet. That would come after I freed myself from the mess this marriage had become. Now that I've had some distance, I want to leave you with a few hard-earned lessons, things I wish someone had told me sooner. Maybe they'll spare you the pain I went through. 1. Commitment doesn't automatically mean loyalty. We all step into relationships hoping that the love we give will be returned, that the person we choose will choose us back every day. But loyalty isn't guaranteed. It's shown, proven, and earned over time. And when the signs start showing, when your partner stops being present, when the energy changes, don't ignore them like I did. Little moments of distance can be early warnings of a deeper problem. 2. If you're the only one sacrificing, you're already alone. Partnership means balance. It's compromise, effort, and shared weight. But I was carrying the entire load, emotionally, mentally, and physically, while she remained absorbed in her own world. At first, I told myself that's what love looks like, giving everything. But love without reciprocation turns into resentment. You can't carry two people forever. Eventually, it wears you down. 3. Silence speaks louder than any fight. I used to think arguing meant something was wrong. But in truth, silence was what broke us. When she stopped engaging, when the conversations dried up and she acted like I wasn't even there, that was when things truly fell apart. Emotional distance is more dangerous than shouting matches. It's the quiet resignation that the relationship no longer matters to them. I learned that too late. For you should never have to beg someone to treat you like you matter. I spent years trying to remind her of what we had. I wanted her to see me again, to remember who we were. But her eyes never looked at me the same. She talked down to me, ignored me, treated me like I was in the way. and I kept hoping things would turn around. But you can't beg someone into valuing you. If they can't see your worth, you're wasting time trying to prove it. So as I close this part of my life, I want to ask you, are you listening to the signs in your own relationship? Are you feeling heard, respected, loved? Because if you're not, don't brush it under the rug. Pay attention. Relationships are meant to build you, not break you. They should lift you up, not leave you questioning your worth. And if you're constantly making excuses for why you're not happy or why they are distant, it might be time to face some hard truths. Drop a comment below if any of this hit home. Share what lessons you've learned. Maybe there's something you wish you'd seen earlier too. Let's talk about it, and maybe help someone else who's stuck in the same place I was. And if this message helped you, or you think someone else needs to hear it, hit the like and share button. You never know who's quietly suffering behind a smile today.